Good Green Home Show. We are back. This is the segment with our special guest. We're going to talk to Bryon Angerman. He is a man of many titles, the president of the St. John, Indiana Tree Board. He is the nursery stock buyer, or AKA tree and shrub buyer and manager at the El Sapoma Nursery, one of the largest independent garden centers in the United States. So one of the top ranking out of 10,000 garden centers. You're in the top 30, and you're one of the buyers, or you're the buyer for the nursery plants. So that's kind of exciting, and the perennials. You're also the outside salesperson for the landscape contractors. So you have your finger on the pulse of what the landscapers are planting, which has a direct result or direct impact on the ecosystem. And you are a proponent of tree diversity.
Yes, I am.
Oh,
A graduate
definitely.
of Fordham University in the Bronx, by the way. Pretty cool.
Right by Botanical Gardens, yep.
And you're an average fantasy football player, I must say.
Average.
ouch.
You're just
Ouch.
kind of average at fantasy football.
You know, the tree diversity thing is what I'm all about, because our cities have been devastated. You know, back many years ago, before my time, all the cities were devastated because of
The Dutch elm disease.
the Dutch elm tree, the elm trees, and now it's EAB.
What is EAB, Bryon?
Emerald ash borer. It's instead of a disease that attacked the elm trees, which was if you want to call it a mechanically born type of a fungus, so to speak. Now you have a actual pest that's coming in that has evaded the Northwest Indiana and the entire state of Michigan, and now is moving Ohio.
Most of the country.
Most of the country,
yeah.
and one of the biggest surveys that's out there is saying that by the year 2020 or 2025, emerald ash borer will have affected 99% of all the ash trees in Indiana.
So
That's
EAB,
insane.
it stands for emerald ash borer. It is a little green emerald colored bug that bores into the ash tree. And what is the impact of the loss of the ash trees due to emerald ash borer?
The impact is we're just seeing right now the actual tip of the iceberg, so to speak. We're seeing a lot of decline. We're seeing a lot of trees being removed now. But what's going to happen in the near future, meaning in the next 3 to 5 years, is that the trees that were not just affected, but the trees that have actually gone to the wayside are being removed. And some of these municipalities and communities have not had a plan in effect to replace these. And when you remove this amount of green canopy from the area, you increase the amount of watershed, you increase the amount of stormwater that goes back down into your drains, you increase the less of the fertility of the soil, because now all the chemicals that these trees were uptaking are now releasing them back into your streets and your sewers. So we have an impact on water. We have
Heat.
a heat.
You know, the heat island effect on the major cities. If all the trees are
Huge.
gone, ba-boom. Yeah.
Huge.
Yeah,
The amount of trees that are right now being removed, if we replace 1 2-inch tree from the 15 or 18 or 24-inch diameter tree, it takes almost 5 of those trees to replace 1 of the mature ash trees with the canopy. With that being
Wow.
said, the increased CO2, the carbon dioxide that's out there, the decrease in property values, decrease in municipality values, poor water quality and excessive runoff has had a huge impact, and it's just going to keep getting worse if we're not going to be proactive in our ability to combat this.
So the answer is diversity.
Tree diversity is going to prevent, if we go back and look at they say the last ice age was so many years ago. Well, the last time we had a really major tree impact was your elm trees. And what did they do to combat that? They diversified and they made 8 different varieties, and still making 8 different varieties.
And they started planting ash trees.
Exactly. Exactly. Well, not only that, with the elms, they created all these new elms, and no one really wanted them because they have a smaller leaf. They're not as the canopies aren't extremely attractive. It's a great tree, don't get me wrong.
But they're fearful.
Exactly. And then being that baseball's our American pastime, the ash tree is the big component of baseball bats. Louisville Slugger.
So, Bryon, I go out to Ohio every year, and when I drive through from heading east, I notice a lot, just the last few years especially, a lot of dead trees.
Exactly.
And those are ash trees, and it's not just ash trees that people planted. There are native ash. They've spread throughout the forests in the Midwest. And I read somewhere a study that hospitals were seeing increased levels of respiratory diseases and other oxygen depletion and CO2 increase related issues.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's a great and valid point.
Impacting the health.
They've had a huge impact on the physical features of the human being. This fact that they're not in an environment that has the high oxygen levels. Besides the fact of the oxygen levels, it helps clean the air besides just CO2, but all the pollutants. But the other fact that they're really seeing now is that the mental aspect and the overall well-being of the human being that has a lot of ash trees or trees planted in the community, they become almost safer. They feel more well rested. They have a better ambiance about them, and now
filtering the toxins out
of the air. And they're seeing that people smile more and are in a better state of mind and a better attitude when they have trees planted. So by us looking and preaching the diversity, what we're doing is not just giving people a new set of trees, but we're also looking at possibly preventing another outbreak. Because who knows? 20 years ago, no one would have said, "Hey, we've combated the elm."
So
now
my favorite tree, my very favorite tree, and I think is the prettiest tree, in my opinion, is the autumn purple ash.
Exactly.
And I think it's a gorgeous tree, and it's illegal to actually get an autumn purple ash now. You've talked about what the impact is on the loss of the ash trees. Mm-hmm. But what is being done locally and what is being done nationally to prevent these losses and prepare for the future?
Well, starting in the small term or in the small area, the communities, just as every homeowner, we're trying to educate the homeowner on what emerald ash borer is, how to prevent it, how to stop it, and look at the diversity of the trees that you can replace these with. So we've worked with different communities. We're working with the town of St. John and Crown Point, a few of these other school corporations that have planted ash trees in the last 15, 20 years to get in a plan to look at, okay, in 5 years from now, all of your ash trees need to be removed.
That was the number one planted tree commercially.
Yes.
15 years ago to even up to 10 years ago, that was the number one selling tree.
Exactly. It superseded. It was
everywhere.
Very fast growing, disease resistant, didn't have any insect related issues until recently. Beautiful fall color, smaller leaf,
but
good canopy.
My favorite is the oak. And when my city took my ash because it was in the right of way. And by the way, when the ashes came down in the city, it looked like a bomb had hit our city. Every place.
A bum or a bomb?
A bomb. It was devastating. Every tree was down on every street. I couldn't believe it. And when they came to replace it, we went with an oak. And the reason being, an oak attracts more than 200 different varieties of insects and wildlife. So I felt that it was a good contribution.
Beneficial insects.
Yeah, beneficial. That it was a good contribution back to the community. Do you have other recommendations that are similar?
In taking both of the questions and merging them together, the things that have been done is that we've worked with a lot of different nurseries in growing different cultivars, not just saying oaks and different types of lilacs and different types of maples and things like that. But what we've done is try to get them in the same playing field as us, saying that a lot of these trees that were planted in parkways have become narrower. Sidewalks have become closer to streets. So we've had to go to very columnar, more upright trees and planting them more closely together. And by doing that, they've created these columnar oaks, the columnar hornbeams, columnar maple, ivory silk, lilac.
A narrow.
You're going to have a tree that's going to
means it's
it's going to be more
columnar
upright trees, crimson century maples as opposed to the crimson king maples. And what they've done with these trees is they grow just as fast, if not faster, upright. But the canopy may range anywhere between 8 to 20 feet, which is very narrow. But in the same respect, you can put those in a 5 or 6 foot wide parkway, because most of the new streets and subdivisions, if you've seen them being built, the parkways between the street and the sidewalk have become very narrow because the builders have become very selfish and we're going to advertise bigger lots. Well, the biggest lot that you can have you move the sidewalk in
Sidewalk
3
forward,
feet,
yeah.
and by 100 feet, you gain 300 square feet of lawn space. So they've done that.
Kind
Many
of went a little bit with quantity over quality for a little while there.
Yes, and with these new cultivars that have been out, they're very disease resistant. They've really fit the bill.
Awesome.
You'll also notice a lot of these houses are becoming closer and closer together. So the old-fashioned ash tree and the elm tree that gets 40, 50, 60 feet wide doesn't have a place up by the house.
Tell me about the ginkgo, because you know that I love that tree. It's so
Great,
beautiful.
beautiful tree. There's the ginkgo is probably one of the most sought after. It's like your Hornus Wagner baseball card for those of you that collect baseball cards. It's very hard to get in a very nice position.
In the introduction to Bryon Angerman, he's also a memorabilia collector. And you've got
there
some
you
pretty
go.
neat
So we want to collect the ginkgo.
We got to
That's
collect
what
the
we
ginkgo.
wanna-
I tell you, and
the leaves.
just like you were saying, the ginkgo, it's the only tree to survive the ice age. So it's been around obviously a very long time,
But
because none of us
all
remember
over.
the last ice age.
We always assume that a ginkgo is from Asia because that's where we started bringing them back over. However, they've been on North America. They've been on every continent, I believe.
Correct,
Ginkgos are
except
tough.
for Antarctica, but they haven't or found the seeds supposedly that are down so many miles below the ice cap. But we'll
wait
maybe in
for
our
that
lifetime we'll see if we can validate it. But 6 out of 7 continents is not bad. It's
That's
better than
pretty
4 out
good.
of 5 dentists,
So
right?
the ginkgo has a leaf that's absolutely astounding. It looks like a fan, literally like a fan that you would hold in your hand, and it's yellow in the fall.
Beautiful
The most-
golden yellow color.
Yeah,
But the
beautiful dinosaur
females-
food the ginkgo was.
Beautiful dinosaur, but the females have an issue.
The females do. Not saying that I'm prejudiced towards
that's
bias towards the
horrible.
male side, but in our tree board we have listed ginkgo as a very highly recommended tree. However, we did recommend only the male version.
And why is that?
The females tend to produce an aroma when they're
seed
fruiting,
or the
and
horrible.
and
It's horrible.
yeah, and it does have a.
It's not a pleasant fragrance.
No,
Yeah.
and it drops this weird, mushy yellow fruit, and so to
But
clean that up,
that's to
wow.
attract the pollinator.
It is.
I'm going to throw in a curveball.
Oh,
What's the
curveball.
pollinator
Uh-oh.
of the ginkgo tree?
It's self-pollination. There's it's going to come in
He
from.
cranked that thing out of the park with his ash tree
Now,
made Louisville Slugger.
When I say self-pollination, meaning that many of the ginkgos that are being produced nowadays have been cultivated. They take tissue samples, they take seeds, and they do grow most of those from seeds. However, for our perspective, being the public, we are not concerned about creating a pollinator like we'd have a male-female holly to produce the berries, because we don't want to
Not
have
with your
that.
We
ginkgo
don't want
tree.
the
Not with the
berries.
ginkgo.
Yeah.
With
But-
other things, yes.
And people know ginkgo as in ginkgo biloba because of the medicinal effects that ginkgo has.
Doesn't
So
it
is
help
it the
your memory?
fruit?
It
that
is.
they're-
It is actually not the fruit. It is actually part of the bark and the leaf that is medicinally used.
Then get a male.
What's the benefit? I can't remember.
On the ginkgo?
I haven't had my ginkgo lately.
It's with
Isn't it
it's-
memory?
It's with
No, joint.
Oh, it's joints.
it's
Yeah.
joints and
Echinacea is memory. I haven't had it. Whatever it is for memory,
The
I haven't
cauliflower.
had it apparently.
he skipped his echinacea. The other thing is with the ginkgo too is they've come out with a couple different varieties that are a little bit more columnar now. Besides just the old fashioned ginkgo, but we have ginkgo biloba, obviously, which is your straight species, and then now there's a Princeton Century ginkgo. And with those, it's a little bit narrower growing. It has a very fast upright habitat to it, because ginkgo is a slow growing tree, but once it starts to branch out, you're going to notice that you're going to get the benefits of it. And if what we're doing is
Excellent.
planting for the future. They
We
said
are,
the
yeah.
best time to plant a tree was yesterday, the second best time is today, and the third best time is tomorrow.
Aw.
So we can't look back at yesterday. We have to take today and look at what's going to happen for tomorrow.
Brian,
Excellent.
you're also a tree steward.
I'm
What does that mean?
I'm a tree steward.
You're
I
a
had to
tree
take
steward.
a class. I chose to take a class, I should say, that
Nobody held a Louisville Slugger to your head?
no one took. Well, no. They went to the aluminum bat because they're the ash tree. The Tree Steward program was a great program that's set up by the Department of Natural Resources. It's made available in all states, and working with the Department of Natural Resources, we met at a local venue here. Basically, you have about a 8-hour day where it's all basically studying. It's like I was back in college.
crash
A lot of
course on
slide
tree,
shows.
huh?
Exactly. Tree identification, not just looking at the leaf structure, but being able to go up to a tree and say, someone calls and says, I'm having trouble with this tree, to stand back, look at the canopy, look at the bark, look at the surroundings, look at the impact, look at why there is decline in this tree. So by doing that, it is opening the public's eyes to be able to identify not just what species it is, what the problem is with the tree, and the common effects, and how can we fix this problem. So basically, after you become a tree steward, you take a written test. It's a pretty involving 50-question test, but you actually go out in the field and you are identifying trees. You actually grab the saws and the tools and the pruning equipment, and you're out there pruning, so you get a lot of hands-on. Then if a community calls and says, we're looking to plant some trees, we need some community involvement, some help, we as tree stewards get together and we go to that community and prune trees for a day. We do tree inventories,
terrific.
and we help them because of the way that we have to address these issues now, but the budgets as far as monetary goes have not been set. So what we're doing is working as tree stewards to really identify problems, help the public become more aware of what's going on. And once you become a tree steward, there's no real recertification other than the fact that you have to provide so many community service hours each year, but you become I don't know if you want to say it, like a den leader for the Boy Scouts. And you can take your den and create a new den. And then once you educate that den, and it's just going to kind of snowball all the way down the line.
We need more tree stewards, is what you're saying.
Tree stewards
yes.
are phenomenal. You don't have to have any education in the green industry. You don't have to be a master gardener or anything. It does help. It did help. I did miss one question out of the 50, but I did remember that I missed it. I emailed them back. They still said I couldn't get a retro on it because I had turned my paper in, but I did miss one. But the other thing that they really educated myself in was the different consistencies of the soils nowadays. And the soils, as we've talked a lot, I know we've talked on previous shows, or you guys have, about organics and stuff, that we are losing a lot of our soils. And why are we losing a lot of these soils? The contractors are coming in, stripping off all the topsoils. We're left with this clay.
Yeah.
We're left with this nasty soil that these trees that have been grown for years, just like when you grow your herbs and everything in this real nice environment, and they stick them in the clay, they don't thrive.
Bryon, you're starting to sound like me now, where you just get on a roll and it's hard to stop the train going downhill.
I have a question about this, though.
Put the red light up for a second.
The end consumer, the person who's watching our show right now, gets a tree and comes home. The first thing that the average person does, it says, ooh, I need to add new soil and some fertilizer in this hole. But that's not how I was taught to plant trees. How do they plant a tree?
Well,
proper way.
I'm going to go back. I'm going to take it a step. I'm going to step back even behind you a little bit there, and saying that if they already bought the tree and they came home, now they know what to do. What we're trying to do at the garden centers and as tree steward is to, one, investigate where are you putting this tree, what are your needs for this tree, and two, get a soil sample, check to see your how much drainage you have. You have to find out what kind of drainage you have in there, because a lot of areas, whether they have heavy sand or heavy clay, they'll dig a hole, they'll fill it with water, they'll wait 4, 8, 12, 16, 24 hours to see what kind of drainage
how it
you have.
how
it settles.
We don't want to scare people from thinking it's super complicated to plant
No,
a tree.
very easy.
No,
Go to your
easy.
local independent garden
Exactly.
center
Right,
and talk to an
exactly.
expert
And get a tree.
just
But
say,
once you get the tree
Once you
and
get
you have
the tree,
the hole, then what do you do?
Then what you want to do is we want to look at, obviously, the placement of the tree. How close to the house is it going to be? How close to parkways? Canopy levels. You want to find out, is there any right-of-ways? Are there any overhead lines, power lines that are in the way? Once we've determined the site for the tree, what we're going to do is we're going to dig down generally the depth of the root ball or the container, and we're going to make the hole generally American nurseryman standards are twice the size of the root ball. So if you have a 24-inch ball, you're going to need a 48-inch wide hole.
48-inch.
Now, with that being said, depending if it is a container grown or a balled and burlap tree, will dictate the amount of amendments and how you want to do that. But instead of amending the soil totally, what we want to do is to create an environment that uses in my opinion, we use half native soil
Yes.
with an amended soil.
Now, Bryon, we've only got about a minute left, and you showed me a website once before, and you could plug in some numbers, and anybody can figure out how much money a particular tree can save a homeowner.
Exactly. There's 2 apps that you can do. If you go on the Department of Natural Resources and you'll look on there, and they'll show you an app that's called iTrees is one of them. The other one is
So just Google Department of Natural Resources iTrees.
iTrees, and what we did is we typed in an example where it says I have an 8-inch diameter tree. Okay, well, what is 8-inch diameter? It's about the size of a mush ball. what is the value of that tree? It tells you that the return on that tree is about $67 a year. So it gives you what kind of return on your investment.
Actual monetary
value.
ROI.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and that monetary value was based on, lowering the air temperatures around you. It was the amount of oxygen that it actually releases into the atmosphere, the increase in property
Water
value,
saving.
water saving, energy saving, reduction of the amount of heat that is transpiration loss. The fact that you won't have to be watering your lawn as much because you'll have this nice semi-shaded area at maturity. But as these trees grow, they increase on your return on investment, which the way the stock market's been going on every day, you'll know that when you plant a tree, you are going to get your money back tenfold over the course of the next 3 to 5 years.
So
That
there's
is a statement.
all the more reason to plant a tree. Well, we're out of time.
We
Bryon
are.
Angerman, St. John, Indiana Tree Board President, Alsip Nursery Tree and Shrub Buyer, Tree Steward, mediocre fantasy football player.
Tree dude.
Tree dude.
Just call him a tree dude.
He's
You're
the
a tree
guy.
dude.
And
He's the guy.
I
Thank
appreciate
for
you guys
coming.
having me on.
Yeah.
And like I said, I'm more than willing to help the public out there. So feel
All
free to
right.
email us, check us out on the website, and happy planting come spring.
Yay.
We've got a lot more great information coming up on the Good Green Home Show, but for now we have to pay some bills. It's commercial time. Good Green Home Show, we'll be right back.
Hi, Rich from Alsip Home and Nursery in St. John here to remind you to think outside the box store and shop at your locally owned Best of the Northwest Indiana Region Garden Center.
Alsip Home and Nursery, the best of every season.
In Frankfort on LaGrange Road and St. John on Route 41. See their weekly circular at alsipnursery.com.
Is your lawn being ruined by moles and voles? Bonide has the solution. Bonide Mole Max is an effective repellent to use against moles, voles, rabbits, gophers, groundhogs, squirrels, skunks, and other burrowing animals. The environmentally friendly Mole Max formulation makes it a great product to apply in areas where children and pets play. Just apply 3 or 4 times per year to send nuisance animal pests away. If your lawn needs some repair from mold damage, use Mole Max RX with Lawn Revitalizer. This will help repair your lawn while repelling the moles and voles. Bonide's Mole Max and Mole Max RX are available in a granule and easy spreader application or in a convenient 5-pound shaker applicator for flower or vegetable gardens. Bonide products are family made in America. Bonide Mole Max Mole and Vole Repellent is available at your local hardware store, garden center, or farm feed store, or go to bonide.com for a retailer near you. This product is not for sale in Indiana.